I hate to be the one to break this news to you, but you're going to have to write several different kinds of papers and essays in college. Many of them have distinctive elements that you'll have to know in order to execute them correctly. There are three main styles of writing: expository, narrative, and persuasive. And we will be discussing the elements of each. We'll also have an addendum at the end for research papers, which are slightly different. Let's get started. An expository essay is one that explains something or provides information. By and large, the expository essay is nonfiction. This means that the information in it is true and primarily does not have an author's point of view on a subject or an emotional plea or connection to the content. For example, if you were writing an essay on the different kinds of corn in the world, that would be an expository essay. You're not taking a stance on which corn is best or telling a story about one time when you had an adventure that involved corn. You're simply conveying information about the various kinds of corn. That is expository. There can be different methods to expository writing. You can show a compare and contrast between things. There are so many differences between these two kinds of corn. You can define things. Corn is a tall cereal plant with a jointed solid stem that bears kernels on large ears. You can use examples. For example, here's an ear of corn. And you can even show cause and effect. Because of farming practices, almost all the varieties of corn are nearly extinct. In order to execute an effective piece of expository writing, you need a few elements. First, a strong thesis sentence that presents your subject, corn, your point of view, the 6 major categories, and the topics you'll discuss about that point of view: pod corn, dent corn, flour corn, popcorn, sweet corn, and flint corn. Second, body paragraphs that break down your topics individually. Third, evidence. You can't write an expository essay without actual information to convey, so research your subject and present your evidence. And fourth, a conclusion paragraph that restates the information from your thesis as well as summarizing the overall purpose and goal of the paper. So that is expository writing. Moving on. Next up, narrative writing. The goal of narrative writing is to give a recounting of events in a narrative style, which is often structured as a story. In the case of narrative writing, the content can either be nonfiction or fiction, depending on the description of the assignment. They might ask you to write about the most embarrassing moment of your life, which is nonfiction. They might ask you to write about what you would do with $1 million, which is fiction, for now anyway. Either way, they're both narrative. It is important to note that unlike the other styles of writing which tend to discourage using first person, the narrative essay often includes the use of the first person I, because the narratives are often personal stories and can't really be told any other way. So this is the one style of college writing in which it is definitely okay to use the first person. Because narrative writing is essentially like telling a story, you want to use the same elements you would use when telling a story. First, the introduction, where you start to present the overall theme of the narrative. I'd never met someone who claimed they'd been abducted by aliens until I became one myself. Second, the plot, sprinkled throughout the narrative, moving from beginning to middle to end. Third, the characters in the story who are essential to the narrative. Ronnie, my best friend, got drunk and I had to drive him home. Fourth, the setting, which is the place or places where the narrative took place. I didn't know where this shiny metallic room was, but it wasn't Ronnie's Ford Bronco I was in before I blacked out. Fifth, the climax, which is the moment the entire narrative builds to. The aliens told me if I stopped drinking and hanging out with Ronnie, I could be president of the galaxy. And sixth, your conclusion, which wraps up your narrative. But I liked Ronnie, so I said no thanks. Then they dropped us in a ditch and we walked home. And finally, like a story, you want to have a purpose. You're not writing this narrative for no reason, so explain the reason, the purpose of your story. A good friend is the best gift you can ever have. And that is narrative writing. Next, persuasive writing. What does persuasive writing do? It tries to convince the reader to believe or accept a particular point of view. It is like expositional writing, except that the author has now added intent as well as information. The goal of a persuasive paper is to persuade. So how do we do that? There are a few things that need to be included for writing to be considered persuasive. The first one, a claim. Unlike simply presenting facts and information about corn, Like in expositional writing, persuasive writing needs to make a claim that you can then substantiate with facts and data. So instead of just presenting information, you would make a claim like this: high school is the most unpleasant kind of school. The second, data to back up that claim. When you want to persuade someone, you have to present them with ideas, data, and facts that support your opinion. So after your claim that high school is the most unpleasant kind of school, list some facts that support it. Hormonal teens with driver's licenses, improved hacking skills, trigonometry, cliques, school dances, the expectation that you will decide what you want to do as an adult very soon. Third, context. When you introduce data to back up a claim, you want to show how that data applies to the subject at hand. Context connects your data to your claim. For example, if you propose that hormonal teens with driver's licenses make high school the most unpleasant kind of school, you connect that with context. Your explanation might be, emotional drivers are more dangerous and could lead to more accidents. Or it might be, the whiny jerks who followed me around during middle school can now follow me home or to the mall in their car. These contextual applications of your data help your reader understand how the data connects to your claim. Fourth, the counterclaim and rebuttal. No persuasive writing is complete without a consideration of the opposing opinion, or it will seem like a poorly thought out argument. So the counterclaim presents that opposing viewpoint, and the rebuttal explains why that counterclaim is not valid. For example, there are those who fondly remember their high school days as the best days of their lives. However, the only people who think that are people whose lives are so miserable now that a terrible high school experience seems pleasant in comparison. Obviously, all the examples here are humorous and shouldn't be used, but you get the idea. And finally, research papers. This is a quick addendum to mention them because many courses require you to write research papers. However, there isn't one specific way to write research papers. The details change depending on the individual discipline and the professor assigning the research paper. So in those cases, you want to pay attention to their individual instructions and even ask them if they have a sample of the format they want. That's the best way to make sure you're producing a paper in the style they want. And that's it. 4 general types of writing, and most of your papers will fall into these types. So get writing. If you have any more questions or you want to speak to someone one-on-one, come visit us. We're in Building 4, inside the Academic Success Center, room 120. Good luck.